evening, everyone. Welcome to the Monday, February 23rd Northwest Local School District Board of Education meeting being held here at Colerain Middle School. I would like to invite everybody to say the Pledge of Allegiance, and if we could show anywhere near the enthusiasm that our U.S. hockey team showed when they won the gold and the patriotism for our country, I invite everybody to show their pride. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amy, can you do roll call?
Ms. Slattery?
Here.
Mr. Heather?
Here.
Mr. Detzel?
Here.
Mrs. Jones? Here. Ms. Talby? Here.
All right, now we'll read our mission statement. The Northwest Local School District will create a responsive learning community where all students are valued, challenged, and guided along a pathway to success. And then if I could get a motion and a second for approval of the agenda.
So moved. Second.
Any questions? Sure, go coming up. Mine is not.
Did you join me?
Yeah, I already joined you.
Do it again.
Yeah, it's not coming up. Not sure why.
Leave that.
Why is that coming up? I see, I did.
Restart the one that's right there. There's one right there.
Which one?
The one next to the left.
Which day? This one?
Yeah, this one.
Oh, no, it's in the new screen, not familiar with it. Do single click. There we go.
That's not the right screen either.
You were there. How do I join? Did you go into the meeting? That's the link.
Do you want me to go all the way out and start over?
Yeah, do that. How? Like you're starting it already.
I knew it was going to be bad because it logged me out before I started.
Hang out, login, username and password.
I've joined meeting.
And just do a single click. There you go.
There you go.
You have to get, there's a slight delay.
All right. Sorry for the delay there, but that passes without opposition. And I'd like to invite everybody in the audience, after your presentation if you'd like to stay. We've got a lot of wonderful things on the agenda, so don't feel like you have to rush off, but if you have to, I understand.
Okay, so tonight we start with several presentations. We're going to begin with Colerain Middle School. So Kristen Castile, the principal and hospitable host for tonight, is here to introduce the presentation.
Good evening, everyone. It is my pleasure to introduce you to a group of amazing 8th grade honors ELA students who took a field trip this month that coincides with their study of World War II and the Holocaust. They recently visited the exhibition Auschwitz. Did I do good, guys? Okay. I said Auschwitz. They corrected me. Not long ago, not far away at the Cincinnati Museum Center, where they viewed original artifacts from the largest concentration camp in Europe during the Nazi occupation. Their studies came to life as they also explored firsthand accounts from those who survived, as well as those who sadly perished, and learned about the admirable qualities these men and women displayed during a very tragic period in history. I've got several students here who are going to share some key takeaways from their visit to the museum. After a student, Ariana, you want to begin and tell our board a little bit about some of the things you learned about leading up to your trip?
Leading up to our trip, we learned that Judaism originated from Israel. Jews were discriminated even before the Nazis came, and the Nazis were very harsh and discriminated for a lot of reasons.
While we were there were a few portraits that showed that before the Nazis came into power within Germany, they were entering a new era of openness and acceptance, but the Nazis set them back far before that. There was a picture displaying homosexuality, and it was drawn by a Jewish person. The Nazis used this against them and tried displaying it as a disgusting act, and set Germany back even farther due to it.
During their time at Auschwitz, many Jews were honestly just killed because of the way they look and of their religious beliefs. Many were killed in very violent ways, and they were misled to believing they were going to take a very nice shower, but they were actually led into a gas chamber. They were stripped of their clothes, and they were like dehumanized, and they were killed, and many have PTSD of the children crying while they were dying.
A key takeaway I got while at the museum in the Auschwitz exhibit is that Auschwitz, before it became what most of us knew, or know what it is now, is that it used to be known as a Polish town by the name of, excuse my pronunciation here, Auschwitzum. But in 1939, it got annexed by the Nazi Party and was Germanized. And in 1939, construction began on what we know as Auschwitz.
When Jews got to Auschwitz and they were taken as workers, they would have them wear blue and white striped, almost like pajamas, with wooden shoes, and they would have them do various hard work. Which an example of this is actually from a woman survivor that survived Auschwitz, said that they picked up a big rock and had to take it to another place. Then the next day picked up the same rocks and take them back. which was hard work for them, and the Nazis were continuously like hurting them and having them do hard work. And also the patch that says Jude on it was for the Nazis to show that that person was a Jew, and that if they didn't have that patch on, there could be serious consequences. Yes. Yeah.
Branching off of like the work that they had to do, they had to like the gas chambers when they were stripped of their clothes, the people who did survive and were allowed to continue being in the camp and weren't just killed immediately, had to sort out the clothes, and they would have bundles of clothes and they would need to sort them out. And there was a story of a survivor that had to do that, and the first thing that she saw on top of one of the bundles was her brother's sweater that he wore to the camp, and that's how she found out that he was killed in the gas chambers. And many people did not know what happened to their family members because they were separated and didn't see them again, and they didn't know if they survived, if they died, if they were put in a different camp, or
Who wants to talk to us about these three pictures?
So about the first picture, these were like fences guarding around Auschwitz. They were like electrified, so if any of them touched it, they would get barbed wire and they would get shocked. The book, I think it was about like rules that they had to follow that would have very bad consequences if they didn't. And the chair especially. The chair, I believe, is a dentist chair, and there's dentist tools like in front of it, dentistry. And they would give people would have to lay on the chairs, which obviously is not very comfortable. It looks like almost like a cheese grater is what I said. So it would be obviously uncomfortable to lay on. And many Jews were like reduced to a number that they got tattooed on their arm, or simply just an item of their clothing, and they would get treated very roughly. And honestly, some didn't even have the ability to go to the dentist, and they would have to even die of their symptoms that they couldn't even treat.
So all of these things and authentic learnings that our students took away with them in a very short 2-hour visit have led them to where they are, and some things that they are going to learn about and read about here in the future, and Jack will tell you a little about that.
After we went to Auschwitz, we're going to learn more about World War II and like the Diary of Anne Frank and everything on that sort.
Very nice presentation. I would just ask, how did that make you feel going through that? What kind of emotions did that bring up in you? And did it make you want to change any behaviors that you may see, or because we all have different groups of people, and did it make you realize how much alike we really all are?
You know, they have a national museum in Washington, D.C. for all of this. It's pretty interesting.
What a difficult topic to have to go learn about and speak about. You guys did an amazing job portraying what you learned, so thank you.
He really did, and I will also say that I believe there was at least one high school group down there with them, and the word got back to me before the students arrived back here on campus that our group was the most respectful and the most well-behaved group down there that day. So super proud of these guys. It was not. It was not. They were strangers.
Great job. Thank you very much.
Okay, so thank you for sharing your learning and for the learning you're going to continue with your teachers as you read the Diary of Anne Frank. Next, we're going to move into a presentation about our One Plan. We are a year and a half into the One Plan, and so we're going to do a mid-plan update. This obviously is mid-year of our data, so we're going to run through all three areas of academics, achievement, and classroom environment, and how we're doing in comparison to our total goals and the goals this year.
Well, good evening. We're going to start by talking about the academic portion of our One Plan. Lori Reilly and I are here to just share with you an update. So just a reminder that our overall goal by the end of next school year is that we are a 4-star school district on our local report card, if not sooner. You can see that in year 1 of the plan, we actually missed being a 4-star district by 31,000, of a point. So very, very close. Just a reminder that schools can become 4 stars in a lot of different ways, but we have chosen to monitor specific measures, adult and student measures that we believe will help us to cross that hurdle. This is just a restatement of the 3 adult measures that we are monitoring with the One Plan for academics. We are monitoring the effective use of essential practices with our building leadership teams. We are monitoring the practices of our teacher-based teams, and we are monitoring the instruction that's happening in our classrooms, specifically around our model of instruction. On the academic side, that model defines what we believe good instruction is related to learning target and task alignment with our state standards, as well as with the rigor defined by those state standards. Student-led teaming, wanting our students to take ownership for their learning process and work together and collaborate as a way to learn faster and also to prepare for the future. And then thirdly, in that model of instruction, just making sure that we're monitoring for evidence of student learning throughout the lesson. So not waiting until that map assessment or that unit test, but actually monitoring in the moment so that we can make adjustments in a prompt manner. Our first adult measure around building leadership teams, just a reminder that building leadership teams exist in all of our schools. These teams are made up of both building leaders and teacher leaders. They typically meet about once or twice a month, and they are charged with monitoring the school's goals and strategies. As a district, to be on track with this goal, we needed to be in January at least a 3.56, and you can see that because all of the buildings are on track with their targets in this area, we are currently sitting at a 4.16, where the end goal for this One Plan was that we be at all BLTs above a 4. So this one is going very well, and I think this is an indicator of, real progress in terms of how our schools are organizing to not only collect and look at data, but actually make plans and adjust based on that data. Our second adult measure is around those teacher-based teams. These teams meet once or twice a week. These are teachers who teach the same content or grade level. And with this particular one, this is something that our teachers and teams and administrators are assessing Best practices around teacher-based teams. We're specifically focusing on examining, reflecting, and adjusting to get to student impact. That means when we collect data and it says that all students are not on track with the standards, that we are making adjustments and we are continuing to work to move students closer to that mark. As a district, we are on track with this measure. Most of our buildings are also on track. We needed to be at a 2.25 at this point in the year, with obviously by the end of next year being at a 3, and we're sitting right at 2.24 at this time. Our third adult measure is around that model of instruction that I spoke about earlier. We are making progress with this particular adult measure, but we are not on track. The ultimate goal with this measure is that 100% of our teachers and classrooms are using that model of instruction at a high level. I do want to remind you that last year when we spoke, we shared that our baseline in fall of '24 for this particular adult measure was 4%. So when our district and building leaders walked classrooms, every classroom across the district, when we began, and again, this was a new model with new definitions and expectations, we were at 4%. The end of first year of the one plan, we were in the 20s, and when we walked classrooms in October and November this year, we were up to 42%. So we do have new staff coming in every year. We have put in place training right at our new teacher orientation to make sure that they not only have information and tools, but that they have support to get on board and connect. Our teachers who are implementing this at a high level already were part of new teacher orientation, had a chance to come and give very real practical tips to our new staff. So this one, like I said, we're all over the place with our buildings. Everybody actually has made progress, significant progress from baseline, every building. However, in terms of being on track and being at that 60% mark or higher, this is where we currently stand.
Just new teachers entering the program. Is there other things that you have found, like in the schools that are in the red?
Yeah, so we started this work even before the one plan with a company that we worked with. And so people have very different levels of training and practice and experience with the model. I think that our buildings are putting great strategies in place to provide professional learning around our model of instruction, to have teachers visiting other teachers. So trying to grow that, but I think implementing our model of instruction and seeing it in a 10 to 15 minute visit, sometimes we don't see all of the components, although it is very possible. Obviously, 42% of our classrooms we did. So I think it's a combination of things. The important thing here is the continuous use of the model of instruction and making sure that we are monitoring this on a regular basis, not just when the district walks occur. Okay, Lori is going to talk about our student measures.
Hi, good evening. We know that in order to increase our student measures, we first need to increase and change some of our teacher behaviors. So this kind of leads right in after our adult measures. So as a reminder, our student measures, our goals are by the end of the 26-27 school year, we will have increased our performance index by 6 points per year and increase our grade 3 reading proficiency by 7 points per year. Here is currently where we stand. So this slide right here shows you how our buildings are doing for this school year. As a reminder, the goal is 6 PI points each year. A green box on this chart indicates that a school at the midpoint of the year has gained at least half or more of the PI points they need to meet their end of the year goal. Yellow indicates that they have growth, but not quite at the halfway point, and a red bar indicates that there is no PI growth at this time. You can tell from this year's charts that many of our schools have a lot of great things going on. We are being intentional with our focus areas, with our efforts, and we are starting to see an impact. Now, overall, this slide shows our 2-year goal. So while we made 3 points of PI gain on last year's report card, and we are showing growth this year from beginning of the year to middle of the year, we are still falling short of our year 2 goal. We are continuing to maintain those high expectations for student achievement and are not backing down from that ambitious target of 12 PI point gain by the end of year 2. You can see right now we only have one building that is on track to meet that goal and another building that is making pretty good progress towards that goal. All of our buildings have identified clear areas of focus. They have intentional action steps in place to both support the core instruction and to close gaps for targeted students, and they are progress monitoring and reporting out progress regularly in both our academic action teams and during their administrative check-ins. We know that if the buildings are able to achieve the building goal that they've set for this school year around performance index, that we will increase our performance index 4 or more PI points, which while we still will not be on track for our year 2 goal, it will be enough to make us 3 stars in achievement on our report card, which comes in at around 78 PI points. Lastly, for a student measure, we have our TGRG, or third grade reading guarantee. And if you recall, the goal was 7 percentage points each year of the students that are meeting the promotional score on the third grade ELA test. You can see we are not on track to meet that goal. As a matter of fact, we are well off the mark with our third grade ELA scores. Our fall score of 31%, meeting the reading promotion, was much lower than our fall score last year, but it also was in line with the state decrease in overall percentage as well. The good news is that our buildings have been super proactive and have put a lot of things in place for our third grade students. We have action steps, we have targeted lists, we have tutoring, we have adjustments being made to win blocks. We are continuing to work to strengthen that core, and we have been able to make up some of that gain. Our winter map projected proficiency has us slightly above now where we were last winter, increasing the percent of students scoring proficient from 31 in October to 54 in January.
Had you seen this kind of curving that way before?
Our second grade scores at the end of last year did not indicate that we would see a big jump. However, I'm super excited about our second grade scores this year.
A big jump, like an increase?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
So-
because we know that the third grade fall test really is a test of what they've learned through second grade. So obviously, while we were hopeful,
Yeah.
the data did not indicate that we would have that big of a jump. However, we are currently on track with our second grade data right now. It indicates that we would hopefully see a big jump in the fall of next year.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right, good evening, everybody. My name is Jay Kuhnlein. I'm the Director of Student Services, and I will give an update on our chronic absenteeism goal and our classroom environment goals as well. At the start of our one plan, we had a really ambitious goal to decrease our chronic absenteeism rate by 15 percentage points by the end of the 2027 school year, so June of 2027. It's important, even though I know many of you have seen this slide before, that we give a little context for why that goal, why 15 percentage points. So what doesn't show up on this graph, or I'm sorry, let me start by what does show up on this graph. What you'll see is 5 school years worth of chronic absenteeism data for our district, the blue line on top, and then the state average for chronic absenteeism, the red line on bottom. Chronic absenteeism is the measure of the students that are missing 10% of school days or greater in a given school year. What you don't see on this graph is actually backing all the way up to the 2018-2019 school year, which is actually the last full school year, where our schools across the country were not impacted by the global pandemic. And so in the 2018-2019 school year, our chronic absenteeism rate at Northwest Local School District was 18.4%. And so to get back to pre-pandemic levels of around 18%, we need to reduce our chronic absenteeism by 15 percentage points. So that's why the goal exists, is that while a lot has changed in 7 school years, we maintain an unwavering belief that we can get back to those pre-pandemic levels of 18% or fewer of our students being chronically absent. What you will see in the graph, though, is at the start of the 21-22 school year, which is our first full year coming back from the pandemic, when there was no remote instruction, every kid got counted present, all of the things that happened during the pandemic, our chronic absenteeism skyrocketed across the state, and our district was no exception. So in the 21-22 school year, we had 41.7% of our students chronically absent. We have made a lot of progress in that realm, but we still have more to go. So last year, if you recall, at the end of year update, we decreased our chronic absenteeism percentage points for the 24-25 school year by 1.1 percentage points. That was not meeting our 5 percentage points goal. It was meeting our state report card goal, so we met our gap closing measure, but 1.1 percentage point reduction was not the goal. The goal was 5 percentage points. And so we sat down as a district and over the summer and really asked ourselves the question, what do we need to keep doing, start doing, and stop doing? With the call to action being, let's keep doing what's working and do less of what's not working. And so at this point in the school year, we're making pretty tremendous gains. In fact, to get back on track for this goal, we need to be at 23.7% chronic absenteeism at the end of this school year. So that would not only be a 5 percentage point reduction, but also make up the ground that we didn't meet in our reduction last school year. And as of January, we're at 22.95%. So we are currently, our current estimates are that we are not only on track to meet that 5 percentage point reduction for this school year, but we're actually exceeding that and making up that ground from last school year. In fact, at the end of January, we are 7 percentage points ahead of where we were in January of last school year, which is a huge testament to all of the work our schools are doing, from administrators to teachers to counselors to classified staff and everyone in between, to our transportation services, to everyone working together to ensure that this goal becomes a reality. 7.25 percentage point reduction from this January to last January is something to be really excited about. So much so that I can't go past this slide without kind of clarifying something about our 3 schools that are not green, because I think the context really does matter. So for example, Taylor Elementary is actually 6 percentage points ahead of where they were at last year, from January to January. But their goal is to be at 19.3% at the end of this year, and they're currently at 22.5. So they're making incredible progress. This visual, which is great for visualization, doesn't tell the whole story about Taylor. Same with Coleraine Elementary. They're currently 4.28% ahead of last year, but their goal is to be at 12.3%, and they're currently at 16%. And then also at Coleraine Middle are 10 percentage points ahead this year where they were January last year, but their goal is to end the year at 24%, and they're currently at 25%. So we're maintaining a pretty rigorous bar in the way we visualize this, but if any of my Taylor, Coleraine L, or Coleraine Middle people, particularly Coleraine Middle people, are watching or listening tonight, I couldn't help but clarify that there's a ton of progress being made at all of our schools, but we're staying really high in terms of our expectations around catching up from any lack of reduction we had last year. Yeah, if we just did last year to this year, everyone's green in terms of their improvements.
Yeah.
But when we look at the entire 3-year plan, that's where we're kind of visualizing the entire 3-year plan.
Yeah.
Great way to put that. What I'm also really excited about, as many of you know, or all of you know, that we launched a pretty comprehensive attendance survey in January. We had 2,400 parents and caregivers fill that survey out. 642 staff members completed it, and nearly 4,000 students in grades 3 through 12 completed that survey. So while we're really excited about the progress we're making this school year, and we're going to keep doing the things that we're seeing that are working, we're also trying to prioritize getting stakeholder engagement and input to think about the second semester and next school year and beyond as well, to keep amplifying what is working and keep lifting up the voices of our community to figure out what else needs to be done.
To be labeled as a chronic absentee student, how many days does a student have to miss per quarter or per semester?
Yeah, so 10% in a school year is roughly 17 days in the school year, because we have about 170 calendar days, so roughly more than 4 per day, or per quarter. Sorry, if you miss 4 per quarter, you end up at 16 days, so you'd barely squeak by and not be chronically absent.
Thank you.
And while we're still pouring through all of those survey results, I think one of the key learnings will be just awareness and even discrepancies between like staff, parents, and students and what their own perception is of their own attendance. And so even though we haven't finished that survey digestion and analysis with our schools, that there's some really very obvious insight around just awareness and being part of that.
Is there a cost to these surveys? I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
What's that? I'm sorry.
Is there a cost to the district to do surveys?
Sir, we have a subscription with the company that we use, so it's not a cost. It's not an additional cost.
But just not additional?
It's not additional cost. We have a contract with them for survey needs.
And how many just surveys per year? Just as many as we want, or?
Yeah, we can do as many as we want. And some of them we do internal and some of them we do external.
Thank you.
Jake, when you said that a student can miss 4 days per quarter, what if they're sick? Does that count? I mean, if you have a written note from like a doctor, or you got the flu or something like that, or is it just days that you just don't show up and nobody calls and says, hey, my son or daughter is sick today? What counts, what doesn't count against the student?
It's a great question, and that's part of the educating and working and partnering with our parents. The state does not discriminate. An absence is an absence, so you can be medically excused, you can be not unexcused, it doesn't matter. When the state measures chronic absenteeism, an absence is an absence, which is a hard conversation to have with families when there is a medically fragile, and we exercise a lot of discretion about what we do with the data because every student has a different, name, story, strength, and need.
Sure.
We have medically fragile students in our district that are going to miss days. We don't take them to truancy court, but it's the state, an absence is an absence towards chronic absenteeism, which is difficult.
I mean, it's not, to be honest with you, it's not very fair how they do that. I mean, you could have a student that's got the flu and is out 3 or 4 days, and they can't miss another day the rest of the quarter?
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty critical, I think.
In the state, you're getting me on a tangent now. Let me
It's okay.
hop on the soapbox with you for a minute. The state categorizes attendance 4 different ways. 2 of those categorizations both count towards chronic absenteeism, but neither of them have different weighting. So we have a student A that might miss 40% of school days, and that will count towards our district chronic absenteeism rate the same way that a student that misses 11% is barely chronically absent. So there is no differentiation in that regard either, even though they do report it out 4 different categories. Those bottom 2 categories have equal weighting regardless. So both of those, I think, don't tell the whole story.
Okay.
Absolutely. Additional questions? I think the most important thing to know is that a lot of the things we started last year were slow to pick up traction and are starting to, and we're starting to be really excited about the progress that we're making. And for any parents and students and caregivers that are out there watching tonight or listening, we really appreciate the efforts that you make in partnership with our schools to get your kids there every single day they're able to be. So appreciate it. Additionally, the last part of our One Plan is about ambitious goals for improving our classroom and school environments. One of those goals being to develop and support our staff members to ensure that they also are able to foster safe, productive, and supportive classroom environments with the same rubric that Brenda and Lori were referring to, which is the MOI growth continuum. Our goal being that by the end of June of 2027, 100% of our classrooms will also score a 4 or higher on that. We all continue to be really proud of our staff for maintaining really high environments in their classrooms. While we know this is just a snapshot during district walkthroughs, for 15 minutes. Our staff do a ton of great work every single day to have strong systems, routines, and procedures, high expectations for kids, systems and strategies and tools to keep them really engaged behaviorally. And we believe that that sets the platform for more to come, not just with the environment data, but also with the academic data too. So we are ahead on this goal for classroom environment, or what you've probably heard referred to as like classroom management. Second to that, we also want to reduce the need for office referrals. And I insert the word need very intentionally because we want to continue to be unequivocally clear that if a teacher needs to write a referral to maintain high expectations for student behavior, then we want them to write the referral. Our goal is to reduce
classrooms and buildings, but bus referrals too.
Yes, it does. So some mistake is made on the bus. We count that as part of our referral data as well, because we know that that impacts safety just as much as it does inside of the school, and what happens on the bus also trickles into the school every morning and every afternoon. And our drivers work really, really hard, and they deserve to have a solution and a system to hold students accountable as well. At this point, as of January of 2026, our target was to have a 14.3 percentage point reduction. The reason for that is because last year we did not have a 10% reduction, we had a 6.6% reduction. So to make up for that 4% that we didn't get from last year, we set an even more ambitious goal of 14% this year. At this point in the school year, we are 24% lower than we were last school year with regards to referrals being submitted. I'm really excited about that, so long as everyone hears again that this is to reduce the need for referrals, not to sweep student behaviors under the rug or make our students or staff feel unsupported in those moments. Students or schools that are yellow or red, again, require some clarification. Taylor Elementary is only slightly over their midway through the year goal, very, very slightly over. It's just a matter of a few referrals. And we're learning more and more at the high school level that not all referrals are created equal, and that we're not going to lower our expectations for students, but we see an uptick in what we would call like 100 level referrals. Our code of conduct has 100, 200, 300, and 400 level behavioral expectations. And our administrators and staff are rightfully so working really hard to clamp down on things like students skipping during the school day and things like that. Those necessitate referrals also, but a referral for skipping is a very different type of referral than a referral for a violent offense or things of that nature. So our high schools are certainly combating that and fighting the good fight to get our kids to class and engaged every single day. Questions about referrals before I shift to the last goal in classroom environment? All right. If you recall, last year we also have a final classroom environment goal of reducing physical confrontations by at least 30% by June of 2027. From last year, we were really excited and celebrating a 20% reduction from the 23-24 school year to the 24-25 school year. I'm even more proud to say that at this point in the year, our schools are working hard and seeing a 40% reduction again this year, and that is on top of the 20% reduction from last year. So when we see that type of year-over-year continuous improvement, we know that it's not just a shot in the dark or something that happens by accident. It truly is about the systemic work over time to make our schools not just feel, but be safe, supportive, and places where all of our kids and families and staff can be proud to go every single day. Certainly, no one wants to see a fight in the hallway or at recess, whether that's a kid, a staff member, or a parent. And so for everyone to be able to go home at the end of the day and feel a dramatically different school experience at this point this year than we felt even a year and a half ago is something to be really, really proud of. And while it's not a one-plan goal, it's also worth noting that we see similar precipitous drops in our exclusionary consequences as a result too. So our suspensions are down, expulsions are down. We have not lowered our bar for what would necessitate those types of consequences because sometimes they are necessary, but we see those dropping dramatically too, which we then hope yields a positive outcome on our attendance goals, our achievement goals. I'm looking at Brenda because I see her nodding her head, yes. Mm-hmm. Kids at school learn more than kids at home. staff at school that feel safe and supported are also great for learning as well. So we're really excited about this foundational data a year and a half into the One Plan, and welcome any additional questions about that before I pass it to Daryl to land the plane.
So I just want to reiterate a couple of things. The team was really clear in the fact that our One Plan is a 3-year goal, and we have not lowered expectations from year 1 into year 2. So when we went into year 2, which is this year, any gaps that were in our data from year 1 got added to the expectation for this year. And we are very confident that the strategies that we have in place are going to continue to make gains, and that by the end of the 3rd year, we'll be able to make up the gaps from year 1 and close the gap in year 2 and completely eliminate the gap in year 3. We've done that through a lot of continuous improvement systems. So over the summer, the building principals did a lot of work with me and the team to really analyze year 1 data, to really look at what worked and what didn't work, and really lean into that idea of doing more of what works and less of what doesn't. We don't want to do a scatter shot and have a lot of people doing a lot of things without knowing that it's actually working and making the improvement that we plan. So we've asked a lot of questions about how do you know that worked? What data did you have? How do you monitor that? So really putting into place from a building and system level the same expectations we have for teachers at the classroom level in terms of monitoring student learning and achievement. We've set up collaborative spaces. Every single month, buildings come together with a team around academics, and then a week later they bring a team around classroom environment, and a week after that a team around attendance, and it's not the same people. And we have a variety of people, whether it be administrators, teachers, secretaries, who come to these work sessions who literally are looking at data on a monthly basis about what happened last month, what did we do, is the data changing, and how do we continue to either amplify that or adjust it so that we continue to get better outcomes. And there's a protocol where they literally get to collaborate with another building and literally talk about what's working for you, what's working for us, and how do we share resources. So those are happening on a monthly basis to continue the conversations around this work. And then 3 times per year, our principals are coming in front of our entire senior leadership team to give reviews about where they are at that point in time, to continue to monitor and get feedback about how to continue to improve that. And then outside of just our buildings doing this work, we've taken our departments, our food service department, our transportation department, all of the other operational departments, to really align their work to KPIs, the key performance indicators. What data are they tracking that is really aligned to the work around the One Plan? So we've really tried to narrow and align all of the ships so we're going in one direction. Food service has really been monitoring a lot of data around meals and lunch, serving lunch and breakfast, and are we feeding kids, and how do we continue to nourish students so that while they're here, they're well-fed and well-nourished and able to perform. Really looking at the operational piece of meals per labor hour and how are we monitoring the effectiveness and efficiency of our staff. So they've really aligned the data to the One Plan, not just in buildings, but across the entire district, to make sure that all of our arrows are pointing in the same direction. Any final questions from the board for anything around the One Plan?
Seems pretty impressive.
All right. And I don't want people to get too worried about the red that's on there. The red is because we're really looking at where we are, not just this year, but this year in comparison to the beginning of the One Plan, a year and a half in. And as Lori and Brenda and Jake alluded to, there's a lot going into year 2. The work that our buildings have done to align their strategies is really yielding gains that we are hoping to amplify going into year 3 to make up all of that work from year 1. With that, we'll move into our third presentation, which is an open enrollment update. So when the board approved open enrollment last year, we went through a process of updating you about, in the fall, about how open enrollment went, how many students came, and so in order to kind of help the board make a decision on whether open enrollment is something that's going to continue, we've put together a presentation around how the students who have been open enrolled into the district are doing, and we've aligned this to how they're doing in relation to the one plan goals of attendance, academics, and classroom environment. So Jake will walk through that.
Hello again. I'm back. We wanted to provide you all with an update, as Daryl said, about open enrollment. Make sure we reorient ourselves to the timeline of events from last year, and then open up discussion that the board may want to have about the future of open enrollment. So as a reminder from last year, the board passed the open enrollment policy in March of 2025. We then, and I want to start by just giving some gratitude to Matt Piney, Kathy, and Carrie from the enrollment team for then quickly working to operationalize something new for our district from March to May. So in May of 2025, then we opened up an application period for open enrollment families from May to May 28th. Once that period closed on June 9th, we approved families the week of June 9th and asked them to enroll students by July 31st of last summer. We had 223 applications submitted. 121 of those 220, I can't see that far, I'm so sorry, 223 applications were approved. Of those 121 that were approved, 62 ended up actively enrolling into the district. 13 of them declined, and then 46 of them did not meet the deadline, the July 31st deadline to start their application. So,
On that, like if somebody's a day or two late getting that in, or?
yeah, so the initial expectation in writing was that they had to have it processed and approved by July 31st. And so then we looked at on July 31st and said, if anyone has started their application and they just need additional support, something's missing or anything like that, we went ahead and accepted it.
What about if somebody just moved into the district? Or moved into, moved to the state or something like that, and
yeah, great question.
And found out, hey, they have open enrollment there at Northwest. Yeah. I mean, is there any exceptions to the rule at all, or is it just?
Yeah, so we didn't make it right. So once that like initial period ended, the May 28th, the end of May, we didn't have a venue for them to do that after that point. So those folks that applied in the month of May were the ones that were considered for this school year.
Gotcha.
And that was, the way we did it for this first year, because we wanted to make sure that we could really understand the impact that this was going to have.
Well, what would you do if somebody new moved into the state or moved into the area and they just find out, hey, yeah, they've got open enrollment?
Yeah, so when that does happen, we provide them.
What?
We opted not to have a continuous open enrollment deadline, that it was a set period. Most districts do a set period. And if people moved in and were interested in enrolling into the district as an open enrolled status, they were told they had to wait until the following year, just because we have, as a district, and one of the reasons we went with that is we have a lot of mobility within the district already, and we wanted to minimize the risk of overstaffing our classrooms and having too many kids and not enough staff, because we didn't change any staffing ratios for this. So we didn't allow anyone who missed the deadline to come in later.
We get, and I can't support this with an exact number, but we get an incredible number of students enrolling just within our district throughout the school year. It's a pretty mobile and transient community with that regard. And so we, as Daryl said, wanted to ensure that what we start the year with is never what we end the year with in terms of our enrollment and classroom size. It's very interesting the way it plays out throughout the year. As a reminder of our guidelines, most of these from law, the only reasons to be able to deny an open enrollment request are the 4 bullet points that follow. If the student had a 10 consecutive day suspension or expulsion from the previous school year, if they were convicted of certain crimes, if Northwest School District does not provide the services that they need. So for instance, if they're a special education student, they require certain things within their IEP that we do not currently provide, we're not required to then provide that for them, or if space is not available. So that leads us into the next part about how we considered approvals. We looked at our enrollment projections based on our classroom sizes. So for every level in our district, we have a range for our classroom sizes.
How is our enrollment projections compared, like, say, for 25 then to 26 beginning of school year? What's the projections? Are they pretty much the same?
So our enrollment projections have reduced a little bit each year over the last couple of years, but what we do is when we look at, and we look at birth rates, we look at survival rate for kids from one grade to another, how many stay with us, and we project based on all of those factors. We use a lot of historical data, so we have trends, and we can really look and get a pretty good sense of that. And then we staff based on the number of kids we expect within our class size ratios. So every year, if our enrollment is reducing, the number of staff we have reduces in relation to that, which is why this was an important component of the open enrollment system, because we weren't going to add staff in order to bring more kids in. So we had to use these projections and ratios to be able to determine how much space we had. And because we staff every year to our enrollment projections, we already are pretty tight to begin with.
I'll give a hypothetical example that might be helpful. If we have in our contract that we're going to stay within a range of 23 to 25 students per class, and at the time of open enrollment, we see that there's a grade level within a school that only has 20, right, and the range is 23 to 25. We then, through open enrollment, filled up to the 23, but not over the 23, to account for any influx or any changes that we had during the school year, to ensure that we met that bottom threshold, but didn't go over that and then have a teacher or a grade level at a school experiencing something over that maximum range at any point during the school year. We certainly also gave very fine-tooth comb special education review where appropriate, because we also staff our units and our caseloads based on the law. And so when looking through open enrollment, if there was space, then we would do so. But if there was not space based on our current staff and our current legal required caseloads, then we were not able to accept those students. And then finally, as I said, we were determined to have space if projections were below the bottom of the class size ratio. We thought, and as a reminder of the 62, and we shared a similar graphic last year, but of the 62 students that are actually accepted and enrolled in the district, very similar proportions to a graphic we shared with you last year about the 162 that applied, a high concentration of students applying for open enrollment from Cincinnati Public Schools and Mount Healthy, and then a smaller scattering of students and families enrolling through open enrollment from other surrounding school districts. This graphic represents the 62 that enrolled.
So we got a couple of kids that drive all the way from Goshen?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's a long haul.
So just in terms of those 62, where did we start the year? So of those 62, 16 were in elementary, 14 were in middle school, and 32 were in high school. And then in the details, you can see the school-by-school breakdown as well. So for instance, at the elementary school, of those 16, 5 at Colerain Elementary, 4 at Mumford Heights, 2 at Struble, and 5 for Taylor. At the middle school, 9 at Colerain Middle, 5 at White Oak. We did have families actually request Pleasant Run Middle. It was about that staff size ratio where there wasn't available space. And then finally, 20 open enrollment students at Colerain High School and 12 at Northwest High School. We thought it might be helpful tonight to share a little bit with you about how our students in open enrollment are comparing to the rest of the district, because it's our first year doing it. We didn't know what to expect, so we thought we might as well look at this data through our one plan goals and see what we're learning. So this shows our chronic absenteeism rates by level, not by school, and it shows for the district and then shows for our open enrolled students. So interestingly enough, for our elementary and middle school students that are open enrolled, they currently have a lower chronic absenteeism rate than our district, our students that reside within the district. But we see the inverse of that happening at the high school level, whereas there's about 31.5% chronic absenteeism at our 2 high schools across the district. There's a nearly 60% chronic absenteeism rate for our high school students through open enrollment.
Why is that?
That is the question that is next. We need to investigate and find that out. We don't know yet.
Also add a attendance policy to our open enrollment policy. We learned that at the school board conference.
And we do not offer transportation
Well,
for
when-
any
when-
open enrolled students.
When you have,
I didn't say transportation, I said attendance.
Okay.
Yes.
when you have the open enrollment there, that 59% of them are chronically absent, have you talked to those particular students? Why are you not coming to school? Or
Yeah.
what is the problem that you can't make it here?
Very transparently, as we prepared this slide deck, this was not expected. And so we have to dig,
32 of them.
correct. And so we have to dig a little deeper to figure out why that is. Because there are only 32 of them.
Yeah, that
So we
makes
should be able to
more
pull them
sense.
and ask and say, what's going on there?
I mean, you chose to come here, and you're not showing up.
Most that came from Mount Healthy, where our new football coach came from. How many of those kids have opted to participate? I know they had limits on how many games they could play the first year, but how many of them have actually played sports?
And we're still gathering that information, and something we can certainly look into. I know we're still in the middle of our second season, and then there's still a third season in the spring.
We don't have the data on that just yet.
Okay.
I would like to recommend that we add an attendance policy, and Daryl and I spoke about that last November when we learned at the school board conference that you can add that in. So there are other districts that have open enrollment policies, and they found success in adding that to their policy.
That's great.
I mean, that makes total sense to do that. I mean, you look at the middle school and the elementary kids, it's obviously the parents are bringing those kids.
Well, they're riding with us, too.
Yeah.
Well, I guess not if they're external, but
Yeah.
And
And
none of the
just-
open enrolled students have transportation, so none of them get a bus,
Yeah,
even
just
at
the
elementary.
internal, Yeah.
You know, but it doesn't make sense. If you're going to decide to come here, why aren't you showing up?
Yeah.
I mean, are you going to say, is that kid having a attendance problem at their original school? Do we check that out? I mean, when you have somebody apply, say I'm from Sycamore or whatever, and I want to come here.
So I don't think we can legally, that can't be a reason we keep them from coming, but it
But
can
we
be
can
something we build into our policy
Yeah, I mean,
for the after.
For
like,
renewal.
For renewal.
For renewal.
Yeah.
We were not able to screen for that upon application.
Yeah.
We were able to screen for the things that we listed here, and we absolutely screened for 10 consecutive day suspension and expulsion, which of course would then contribute to attendance as well. And so if any of these factors were at play.
Can anything be added to those factors?
No.
I mean, so those are the four factors there
Yes.
to
When-
deny open
legally-
enrollment? That you can't add one or take one off?
Legally, we went through this last year, and legally, our council told us, no, we could not do more than that, but once they're in, and we're looking at renewals, we have a little bit more leeway, as Nicole was talking about.
Okay.
The next slide shows a similar opportunity to explore further. And Jim, I just want to honor and recognize that your question about what's going on there is the very logical question we need to explore with those 32 students.
Right.
Similarly, at the elementary and middle school level, we see very similar referral rates for our district students in our open enrollment, but we see a higher referral rate for our high school open enrolled students than our currently enrolled students at the high school level that are living within district boundaries. So we see, for example, an open enrolled student averages 1.4 referrals per student at the high school level, whereas the entirety of our high school enrollment averages 0.7 referrals per student, so less than one referral per student. This is not on this slide, but I thought it might get asked with regards to the exclusion due to the 10-day suspension. There are 4 students from those 62 that will be excluded for next year based on a 10-day consecutive suspension.
If they reapply.
If they were to reapply, absolutely. Thank you for that clarification. We also looked at academic data, and so at the elementary and middle school level, we obviously use our MAP scores to make projections on how our students will perform on state tests, and we use that to compare our students in this case as well. We look at our growth projection because ultimately we know that MAP says that the national average for the percentage of students meeting their growth projection is between 50 to 60%. And we know from our trend data that to close achievement gaps, we need this percentage to be greater than 60%. And so when we look at our district, overall, at the elementary level, we have nearly 60%, 59% of our students meeting the ELA growth projection and 63% meeting the math projection. We see our elementary students coming in that are open enrolled with more deficits at the elementary level, at the ELA than the math. So only 31% of our students that are open enrolled met their ELA growth projection, whereas 56% met their math growth projection.
And we chose to use this data point because all of our students come into us at different places, so we didn't want to penalize kids for whether they came in ahead or behind in terms of where they are academically. So this is actually measuring, once they came to us, how much growth did they have, and were they growing commensurate to our district students? So we wanted to make sure that we leveled set for students who might come in with different places, so we didn't want to punish kids for that. So this is really measuring, once you became our student, are you growing at the same rate as our traditional district students?
And as if this data didn't raise enough questions, when we look at the middle school, we see the exact opposite. So our middle school open enrolled students are almost discernible, like almost identical with regards to ELA growth projections, 54% for our district, 50% for open enrolled, but then we see math being a larger deficit for our middle school aged open enrolled students, where only 29% of them met their growth projection. So this really has prompted a lot of more questions to explore over the spring about how we continue to support those students in areas that they need it. At the high school level, we don't give the MAP test. We ultimately chose to look at semester final grades, final exams, and looked at taking the difference between our open enrolled students and our Northwest local school students. And our open enroll high school student first semester grades were actually higher slightly for open enrolled students in ELA and social studies, but then slightly lower for science and math, and in fact 4 percentage points lower on average for math compared to our district students. So again, more data to prompt more questions to better understand as we potentially consider open enrollment, what we can do to support our students that are in the district and outside of the district. But it has certainly prompted a ton of good dialogue even internally over the last few days as we've compiled this around what does it mean, what questions do we need to ask, how do we need to get that information.
And then finally, we have, based on feedback from the enrollment team, we are looking to move our open enrollment dates up to April so that we can get April as the time for families to elect if they want to be open enrolled, May for the period where we can actually let them know they've been accepted and they can actually complete their application. That will help our enrollment team stay ahead of our kindergarten and traditional K-12 enrollment that happens, because the summer gets to be really, really busy. And if we're getting all of our normal enrollments on top of trying to get all the open enrollments through, it bogs up the system. So our proposal is to move that back, but that is basically if the board chooses to keep open enrollment as a policy. And if that is changes need to be made, we would want to have that discussion so that we could prepare whatever changes to the policy for an upcoming meeting and have that done preferably before April so that we could get up and running with open enrolled students earlier if we maintain it, so that we get them done and signed, sealed, and delivered before our traditional enrollments get really heavy in the enrollment center.
Does anybody have any comments or discussion?
Thank you, Jake. My only comment is just that we should add in attendance as a part of the policy, and that it sounds like you're already on top of behavior, so thank you.
So keep the open enrollment policy, but add for re-enrollments and attendance requirement as well.
That would be my suggestion.
I agree with that. That makes plenty of sense.
Anybody have any other Do we know from staff overall there was a lot of fear about doing the open enrollment. Are they satisfied with what happened?
We didn't survey the staff. We asked our administrators to give us feedback if they had it. I think at the classroom level, I don't know if our staff could really pick out who's open enrolled and who's not. They're just new enrollees who came in.
I mean, you're only talking 62
Right.
kids out of 8,000. I mean, it's not really going to make that big a difference.
I think
What's the total attendance? What are we, 80? Is it
7,800
7,800? Okay.
roughly, give or take.
Okay.
I think too, if we move forward with this April window, it presents an opportunity to do more orientation for students as well. More time to think about how to support them, orient them, address some of the things that maybe need to be addressed too. Thanks, y'all.
Okay, and now we'll move on to student achievement. I'm going to fill in for Sierra tonight. She's experiencing dental pain, so we'll start off with academics. And Struble Elementary School first graders recently celebrated the 100th day of school. Students marked the milestone by dressing up as if they were 100 years old, participating in engaging hands-on activities centered around the number 100. First graders rotated through classrooms and completed a variety of themed activities, including racing to 100 in a partner game, counting Fruit Loops to create necklaces, designing hats with 100 dots, estimating how many licks it takes to finish a lollipop, and participating in a read aloud with a related extension activity. And from the pictures there, it looks like they were all having a great time and learning a lot. Taylor Elementary's fifth grade students recently participated in a STEM-focused field trip to iSpace. During the experience, students engaged in a hands-on learning activity that required collaboration, problem solving, and teamwork to complete various missions. So another important activity there to use their skills and work with each other. Pleasant Run Middle School would like to congratulate their spelling bee participants and champions. 27 students qualified to complete in this year's school-wide bee. The second runner-up was 7th grader Ushav Bastola, and the first runner-up was 8th grader Taraja Ray. We are proud to recognize our 2026 PRMS spelling bee champion, 8th grader Antonio Calcano de la Cruz, who secured the win with the word compassionate. Antonio will advance to compete in the regional spelling bee in the spring. So we should all cheer on Antonio and send good vibes his way so he does well at the regionals. Northwest High School would like to recognize sophomore Megan Connolly for her outstanding academic achievement. Megan has earned the highest grade point average in her College Credit Plus U.S. History course. She consistently performs at an exceptional college level standard. She is an active leader in class discussions, engages thoughtfully during question and answer sessions, and demonstrates strong critical thinking skills. Her ability to analyze complex historical documents with depth and clarity sets her apart. We are proud of Megan's dedication and academic excellence. So we congratulate her. She may be a future lawyer or a politician, it looks like. Next, we'll move to citizenship. And Pleasant Run Elementary Student Council recently hosted a kindness event to recognize students who consistently demonstrate compassion and respect in their daily interactions. Students were invited to nominate peers who exemplified kindness, and nominees were then voted on by their classmates. So what an excellent character trait to celebrate, and it looks like they were having a good time with that as well. Coleraine Elementary would like to congratulate the 174 Coleraine Elementary students who achieved perfect attendance in the month of January. No absences and no tardies. To celebrate their commitment, students were recognized with a special Do Not Miss January donut party. We're proud of these students for demonstrating responsibility and the importance of being present and ready to learn each day. And that's such a great habit to develop for now and for later in life in the work world. So congratulations to all of them. And Coleraine Middle School would like to congratulate their January PBIS Students of the Month. These students were recognized for consistently demonstrating the core expectations of being respectful and accountable. Recognized for being respectful are Ruby Mongar, Tristan Coleman, Josiah Walton, Jacob Tapcorn, Reese Weitzel, Shahida Miranda Ajihan, Sarah Barre, Sophia Greer, Henry Johnston, Terry Frost, Easton Thaman, Osias Jimenez Cristomojo, Jace Harold, Maxon Griffiths, Marta Cux, and Nissan Gurung. Recognized for being accountable are James Nelms, Logan McCoy, Tessa Cuesta, Aliyah Thompson, Zoe Schrenk, Trey Sean Perry, Haley Keller, Ulissa Cruz, Bentley Bollinger, Ian Kappel, and Antonia Smith. So congratulations to all of them with their excellent PBIS awards. Next we'll go to Fine Arts. And Montford Heights Elementary would like to congratulate the 2025 PTA Reflection winners and honorable mention recipients. We are proud to recognize our state qualifiers. In film production, Madeline Kay earned first place in grades 3 to 5. In dance choreography, Olivia Kay earned first place in grades 3 to 5. In photography, Mia C. earned first place in grades 3 to 5, and Cameron B. earned first place in pre-K to 2 division. In visual art, London F. earned first place in grades 3 to 5. In literature, Claire S. earned first place in grades 3 to 5. Jacob B. was runner-up in grades 3 to 5, and Elijah C. earned first place in the pre-K division. We would also like to recognize our honorable mention recipients in visual arts, Asher C. in pre-K to 2, and Sydney E. in grades 3 to 5. In literature, Josephine L. in grades 3 to 5. Congratulations to all our students for their creativity, talent, and hard work. Excellent job on their part. In Colruyt Elementary, we'd like to congratulate our 2025 PTA Reflection winners and honorable mention recipients. In the visual arts category, pre-K to 2 division, Tuba Alhamade earned first place, and Emerson Otten was named runner-up. Tuba's artwork advanced to the state level, which is quite the outstanding achievement. In grades 3 to 5 visual arts division, we are proud to recognize the following honorable mention recipients: Elizabeth Waddell, Rosie Monger, Derica Shredstall, Ramaya Phillips, Amelia G., Samuel Nolan, Courtney Meyer, Lindy Lester, Elizabeth Nolan, Mason Haler, Mia Houston, Aliana Hutchinson, Elizabeth Baer, and Cordy C. Howard. Congratulations to all our student artists for their creativity, dedication, and hard work. And this is some beautiful artwork up there. And last, we have White Oak Middle School for Fine Arts. In December, nearly 300 of the top middle school musicians from Hamilton and Claremont counties auditioned for the Ohio Music Education Association Honor Band. Judges selected the highest performing students on each instrument, and fewer than half of those who auditioned earned a spot. We are proud to share that 2 of those selected musicians represent White Oak Middle School: Janelle Maribel for baritone saxophone and Clara Mae McCoy for euphonium. These students spent the weekend rehearsing with renowned guest instructors and delivered an outstanding performance at West Claremont High School on Sunday, January 11th. So congratulations to them with their awesome musical skills. We're proud of all our students. What a great job. And next we will move to Jim with Butler Tech Update.
Yeah, Nancy. Last week I went to the Advanced Manufacturing ribbon cutting in Hamilton, and there were 700 people there that showed up. There were 16 total representatives and senators from around the state that showed up also. And it's the first of its kind in the country that a secondary school, Butler Tech, has gone in with Miami University on a project where we'll have our kids will be in there learning anything from welding to advanced manufacturing, working on CNC machines and so on, along with college students from Miami University. And we have 50 companies that have signed on that they're bringing their specialty and helping teach these kids also. So it's, like I said, it's a one of a kind in the country that we've done this, and it was a great day. And I would encourage every student in our district to go and check this facility out because it is fantastic. Then we have March 16th, we're going to have the ribbon cutting at for the aviation program at the Middletown Airport. I believe it's at 10 o'clock in the morning. And then the bioscience is about 80% done, doubling the size of it, and that's the building there at Cincinnati Dayton and I-75, that red building that you go by, that's the bioscience from Butler Tech. And other than that, that's what's going on.
How many students will that manufacturing program be able to hold, do you know?
350, and and what they're already doing is going to try and apply for more grants and that so they can get more students in there.
Awesome, sounds great.
Yep.
All right, and next we will move on to legislative update with Nicole.
Nothing to report today.
All right. And Daryl, do we have any employee organization reports?
We do. We have Carrie Martini, who is representative of the teachers union, who is going to speak on funding options that the board is considering for the district.
Hi, everyone. I think I know almost all of you, if not all of you. So I am here representing the association, and I think I was chosen because as a product of the district and having taught here for 29 years, and my children going through the school system, and also I still live in the community, we have a perspective that we believe that the income tax option is probably the best one for our community, because it will take the burden off of our elderly population who might be living on a fixed budget, as well as it could ease the property tax load for our community members, and it'll establish a long-term funding of our schools that will alleviate the need for us to continuously go back to our neighbors and ask for more money via levies. So it seems like it's a win-win situation because taxes will go down and they'll be placed on the income tax, so it'll seem like a smaller amount, or at least it will come out more evenly, I think I will say. And again, helping our elderly population, which I know my mother would appreciate since she still lives in the district as well. Thank you.
And for community comments, as per policy number 0169.1, each submission will be given 3 minutes to address agenda items of any topic during community comments. However, no more than 15 minutes will be devoted to public participation unless the board votes unanimously to continue discussion. No response to the submission will occur from board members or district administration during this time. Once the 15-minute time frame is over, appropriate follow-up by district administration may occur at a later time if warranted. We do not have any community comments tonight.
For the consent items, we'll start with Human Resources.
We seek approval for the following: 8 resignations, 4 retirements, 13 initial appointments, 2 change in status, various supplemental items and leaves of absence, and 2 job descriptions.
For donations tonight, we have books from Mrs. Coleman to Taylor Elementary School, a monetary donation from Side by Side to Struble Elementary School, a monetary donation from Mark and Carolyn Constance to Taylor Elementary School for a 4th grade field trip, a monetary donation from McDonald's to Northwest High School, and a monetary donation from Colerain Boosters to Colerain High School. For vendor contracts tonight, we have Prom, Title I Services, Special Ed, and White Oak Middle School Band.
The superintendent recommends the board approve the consent items as listed.
Motion and a second. Second. Any questions or discussion?
Yeah, so the Director of Accountability position and the items, are any of those jobs increases in pay? Any of the moves listed?
One is a lateral move, one is a promotion, but it's a nominal increase in pay. Earlier
But it
this
is an increase in pay.
Yeah, about $4,000. Earlier this year, the board approved the recommendation I made to change a supervisor position to assistant supervisor position, which saved about $30,000.
And so none of the items listed here will increase pay more than what's already being paid, though?
One of the changes is a slight increase of about $4,000.
Okay. But we're not adding new positions that are going to cost the taxpayers?
No, these are reallocating to current positions, and the position of assistant director of curriculum is not being refilled. So it is not backfilled and is not adding any additional administration. It is just reclassifying to current administrators. But one is moving from assistant director to director.
Any other questions? All right, we can vote. Yours not coming up?
It didn't come up.
We're gonna get to the sync thing. Yeah.
It's not coming up.
Just hit refresh in the top left corner.
Up here?
Right here.
Oh.
Right here.
Oops.
Right.
Okay.
And then hit the meeting. On the date. And then hit join.
There we go. Thank you.
All right, and that passes without opposition.
Good evening. First, I'd like to ask the board to dispense with the reading of and approve the minutes from January 20th regular board meeting. Our financial report for the month of January is our all funds balance is $98 million. Our general fund unreserved balance is $22.6 million. Our revenues year-to-date are at $60.6 million, or at 54% through our target. Our expenditures are $62.9 million, or at 55% through our projection. Our invested weighted average return is 3.81%, is starting to decrease, one as our fund balance goes down, but also as the rates have been reduced. Our list of monthly bills are our routine monthly bills, as well as we had some staff and student software, our OFCC Segment 1 project for Colerain Elementary, the Northwest Career Center of Innovation, Montford Heights maintenance, some HVAC repairs, some food service, Department purchase some refrigerators, the PA system at HELC, and some auxiliary and grant fund payments. And finally, ask the board to accept, approve, and appropriate a bus safety grant that we received for $151,000. So with that, I ask the board to accept the fiscal consent items as listed.
Can I have a motion in a second?
So moved.
Second. Any questions? And that passes without opposition.
Thank you.
And next, we have our membership to OHSAA. This is an annual resolution that we do to declare our membership, continued membership in OHSAA for secondary sports. The superintendent recommends the board approve the membership as listed.
Can I have a motion in a second?
There we go. So moved.
Any questions or discussion? And that passes without opposition.
Next, we have an easement at Colerain Elementary School. Now that we're building the new one, it's kind of, we have to distinguish between the new and the old. This is actually for the current Colerain Elementary School. This would be in conjunction with the sidewalks that are being put in along Springdale Road. This grants easement for the work to actually construct the sidewalk, but then it's also the donation of the property where the sidewalk would be installed. That resolution is here granting the temporary easements and the donation of the property for the township for the actual piece that the sidewalk is on. The superintendent recommends the board approve the grant of easement request at Corrigan Elementary School by Corrigan Township as listed.
I have a motion and a second.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? And that passes without opposition.
All right, next we have a catastrophic building failure plan. The board passed that. However, we had to implement that. That was the plan of what happens if, and then if happened, because bricks started falling off of Corrigan Elementary. And so based on that plan, we moved preschool out of Houston into central office, moved central office to rental space, and we are currently building Corrigan Elementary on the existing Houston site. And I don't think we can say this enough, but in order to do that, we are using the credits from the first phase where we built Taylor, Pleasant Run, and Struble that we earned in that phase at the state. We petitioned the state, who added us into a co-funding phase that we weren't currently slated to be in, but because our community really mobilized with letter writing to OFCC and legislators, we were able to advocate to get ourselves into a co-funded project. And because we're in that co-funded project, we have the state kicking in money, cashing in the credits, and using some of our existing cash balance to offset the balance of that project, and we are building this new building with no additional tax on the community. And I don't think we can overstate that or say that too infrequently. So that's a huge accomplishment for the district. But because we had to implement that plan, we now have to pass the revision to that plan because we've lost Houston, which was our swing space. And we still have additional buildings that have immense needs. We happen to be in one of them tonight. Corrigan, we talk about how it turned 100. This one that we're sitting in now is going to be 100 before we know it, and is still being heated with boiler heat. So, and it also has bricks that have fallen off. We had to tear the parapet off. So our building needs are not alleviated because we were able to build Corrigan Elementary. Corrigan Middle still has needs. White Oak, Pleasant Run Middle, and our two high schools have extreme needs. And we have to be prepared that if something catastrophic happens again, hopefully it won't, that we have a plan. This plan gives us kind of a framework of how we would do that. Obviously, there's always a lot of moving parts, but the gist of the plan would be if we're talking about a middle school failure, because we have no more swing space, and our buildings don't have a lot of open classrooms. We're not like other districts that are closing buildings because our enrollment has dropped off so much that we don't even need a building anymore. We don't have that many open spaces. We are still using a lot of nooks and crannies for a lot of instruction across our district. But if there was a middle school building failure, this would really look at taking the building that's failing, moving our 6th and 7th graders into the other middle school, and taking 8th graders from both of those middle schools into the high school. So really moving 8th grade up and then making our middle school a 6th, 7th grade building versus a 6, 7, 8, because we have the room to move them up, but we don't have other spaces we can move kids. If there were a high school failure and we couldn't use one of our high schools, we would have to combine high schools. However, we don't have room in our high schools to combine. So we would prioritize in-person learning for our 9th and 10th graders and blended learning for our 11th and 12th graders. They would not be there every day because we just wouldn't have space for them. So neither of these options is ideal. And if we had a failure where we had to implement any part of this plan, at the very next board meeting, we would have a conversation with the board about what funding options would be available and what options you might be willing to consider, because this is not a long-term plan that is sustainable or great for kids. But it allows us to continue education in a way that fits the space we have, but doesn't really fit our needs. It's a Band-Aid. So this is allowing us, if this were to happen, to be able to use our existing cash balance to implement some of this plan. But again, the long-term vision for what we need for the district is viable facilities that are good for our kids, our community, and our staff. With that, the superintendent and treasurer recommend the board approve the revised catastrophic failure plan as listed.
Can I get a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? And that passes without opposition.
And I will say the only other option that is out there would be an A and a B session where you're doing like evening sessions and morning sessions, which we avoided in this plan.
So now we have some additional fiscal items. Annually in January, our Board of Revisions attorney looks for sales that have occurred in the prior year on commercial properties and brings them to the board to be filed as an original complaint to have the county, if approved through the Board of Revisions process, to increase the valuation to sales price. This year, our attorney identified 22 parcels through 11 vendors that we'd like to ask the board tonight to approve and authorizing us to file those complaints with the Board of Revisions. Again, just bringing valuation up to sales price, the sale that was made in calendar year 2025.
So these parcels, the people that own them are filing the saying that they want to?
No, we are filing as a school district to say you sold your and all these vendors have been notified. A letter from the board has been sent to them to say we're having the conversation tonight. If approved, we will be filing the complaint to the Board of Revisions to increase your value up to the sales price in which you sold your property in 2025.
What's the total amount of money for all these parcels? Do we know?
Have to look at the update. Right, remember this is commercial property, and it doesn't give us, it gives us a one-time increase in revenue for 2025, and then it just reallocates what we currently collect among the vendors based on the new valuation. So it's not an increase in dollars, it's to increase valuation to bring down what our residents pay. Because in total, as a school district, we collect the same amount of money. It's just determining who's paying what portion.
And how many properties are there total?
There's 22 parcels and 11 vendors.
Okay.
And what was your question about dollars?
I just, how much money of that tax money that comes to the school district? Just ballpark.
$46 million?
Okay. It's a lot of money.
It's again, it's not.
No, I know.
That's value,
Right.
and it's not the way taxes work. So we'll still be flat.
Sure.
We're not getting a $46 million.
No, I know.
Okay.
Any other questions? We have a motion and a second.
So moved.
And that passes without opposition.
And the next two items are coming to the board as a request of the board from our work session and then the last board meeting's presentation. The first resolution is a resolution of necessity for a current expense levy of a continuing levy of 5 mills So I ask the board to, as a recommendation, to approve this resolution declaring necessity of levying a tax as listed.
Is there any discussion regarding that? Is there a motion or a second?
Second.
And for discussion, just to clarify that this is the resolution of necessity for a 5 mil property tax levy. As we talked about at the last board meeting, one of the options was a 5 mil levy and then renewing our two renewals that are on the books. The next item is the 1.5% earned income. So depending on one or both of these passing, these would be submitted to the state to get the millage rate and or the earned income tax rate, and then one or both of these would come back for a final vote at the next meeting. So there are two options on here. You can move forward with both of them tonight and reduce it to one next time. You can reduce it tonight, but both of them are on here for consideration.
And this would not be subject to the homestead benefit, correct? Because it's a new levy.
Correct. Any property tax after 2013 does not have the property tax.
And so if we did this, we still need an additional, like you said, 2 levies.
So,
Or we do this
in the
and the
presentation,
income
the
tax.
proposal and recommendation, we need a total of 13 million. We currently have 18 million in emergency levies that are expiring, which either need to be renewed or replaced, and we need an additional 10 million in revenue that we've been talking about since 2019. This particular resolution is only referring to the 5 mills, which is the $10 million in new additional revenue that we need as a school district. And this would be the property tax option.
Any other questions?
So we're, go ahead.
And that passes 4-1.
In this next resolution of necessity, again, why is there two? The board, you asked to bring both options back. So this next one is a resolution of necessity for an earned income tax levy. When we add up the 2 current emergency levies and the 10 million additional revenue that we need as a district, it's $30 million. So 1.5% is around 31 million in estimates by the state. So the closest we could get to the 30 million was the 31 million. And that's what this resolution of necessity on an earned income tax is asking.
And if this passes, we would not require to pass any of the other 2 levies.
Correct. If the earned income tax of 31 million would replace the 2 emergency levies that we currently have and the 10 additional million that we need, it would be all 3 together.
So we could take care
And
of
then if they
everything.
both pass, then we'll vote on it next board meeting. Which one?
So if both of these resolutions of necessity pass, then we file the resolution of necessity for the property tax with the county auditor for them to certify the millage, and we file the resolution of necessity for the income tax with the State Department of Taxation for them to certify the percentage. Then with any levy, you have the resolution of necessity, here's our need, and then a resolution to proceed. So the board would still need to take action as a resolution to proceed with what gets filed with the Board of Elections.
Any other questions? Can I get a motion in a second?
So moved.
Second.
I thought we just had discussion. Is there more discussion?
The earned income tax levy. I don't understand how we can put on the ballot something that benefits senior citizens, but then puts the burden on the working young families. 1.5% is the highest income tax. I know there's a reduction with the emergency levies falling off, but 1.5, if a couple makes 100,000 a year, Guess what? In January, they get to write a check for $1,500. I just can't do that. Think about when you go to sell a house and somebody comes in, oh, they've got a 1.5. I've talked to people who've moved because of income taxes on schools. What about a business that's going to come in? Oh, I'll just move it to Green Township, Oak Hill School District. I don't want to pay 1.5% income tax. So I'm going to vote no on this. I think the voters hopefully will, they're going to hear that they get a tax reduction. That may be, but trust me, it's going to cost them a lot more in the long run. If it didn't, we wouldn't be doing this. And 1.5%, I would be willing to do half that. If people want to amend the amount to 0.75 and maybe have less money fall off with the levies, but I just can't see 1.5%, not in this day and age when people are getting $400 or $500 gas and electric bills. Everything's gone up.
I wish.
So is there anybody who would be interested in lowering it?
I'll take that $400 electric bill.
Yeah.
I'm not willing
I'm
to
not
lower
lowering it.
Listen, we've nickel and dimed this district enough over the years by not putting enough up for levies and that, and we need this money. If we don't pass it, then what happens? Then the state comes in and takes over our school district.
A lot of districts are going this route versus
A lot of them
levies.
You know, and I think it's the right way to do it. And what's wrong with giving the senior citizens a break? I mean, come on. They're making less money than people that are working now. I'm assuming. So I'm sure there's some that make more money. But, you know, if you can take care of the senior citizens, you know, there's no tax on, you know, their Social Security. There's no tax on their investments, their pension. Why not? I mean...
But Jim, don't you think it's a little bit unfair that we then...
I don't think it's unfair because I think the rest of the community, it's just, you know, take care of the rest of the community. You know, they'll be fine. They'll be okay. You know, it could be that they'll be paying less money than what they are for the property taxes that they're paying right now.
Well, we shall see. I mean, this has to go before the voters. This isn't, you know, done just by our vote. But I think we should have tried for another conventional levy.
We've gotten killed on conventional levies the last 3 times. I mean, the last time we put one up a year and a half ago, we got beat 80% to 20.
I mean, it was that bad.
I don't know about you, but I don't like those odds, to be honest with you. And, you know.
And then I think if we do a lower income tax and we add a new property tax, that's really not going to make people happy.
Well,
and if it's your earned income, it's already out of your paycheck before you see it, which is much better to me than getting a few $1,000 bill in January for property taxes right after you've just gone through Christmas. And then you also have to get ready to do your income tax, your federal and state income tax, and God only knows what you might end up paying on that.
Well, another thing that I'm thinking of, and you can mark my words on this, it won't stop at 1.5. It'll be in 10 years, it's only a 0.25% increase, so it'll be 1.75. And then a few years later, we need more money. It'll be 2%. So the majority rules here. I appreciate everybody's opinion, but that's my opinion, and I'm going to vote no.
Thank you for expressing it. Any other comments? We can vote. And that also passes 4-1.
So both of those will come back at the next meeting for the resolution to proceed.
So it's February, and the state has moved up the May forecast to February. So Tonight, we are sharing our financial forecast, what's driving our budget, and the important decisions that are ahead of us. This presentation is about transparency, partnership, and long-term stability. The forecast is a planning document that is required by the state. It uses historical data and also the current laws to project where our finances are headed. We update it twice a year and we adjust as needed. Every financial decision aligns with our strategic plan. Financial stability is important in order to support student learning and achievement. Where do our revenues come from? So Northwest is primarily funded locally. Property taxes are our largest revenue source, which means local decisions significantly impact our schools. Even when property taxes increase, the school revenue does not automatically increase. Recent property tax reform laws have further limited our growth. The top chart shows our projections prior to property tax reform, and we were getting increases which started in 23 when we reached the 20 mil floor for residential property. We would have saw an increase in 26 for the update year and again in 29 for the reappraisal. Property tax reform has included our emergency levies into the 20 mil floor calculation, which takes us off the floor and flatlines our revenue once again. So no increase for 26, no increase in 29, and the state also changed the valuation years and moved the 29 reappraisal to 2030. These new laws not only reduce our projected local revenue, but they do not increase our state funding. This creates a double loss. While the state has flatlined our local property revenue with these laws, they're using the increase in valuation that our property taxpayers see in the state funding calculation, which means valuations still go up, reducing state revenue, but the property taxes do not go up, reducing local revenue. So again, this is slower property tax growth. By being off the 20 mil floor, we only see additional revenue when we pass a new levy. It reduced, the tax reform reduced inside millage, so inside millage has always been the same and grew. Inside millage is capped at GDP, so it starts to roll back and only has smaller growth. And then our revenue is flat or reduced based on property tax reform. Our state funding, so as I said, as our community property values and income increase, the state's share of our funding decreases. We're becoming more and more dependent on our local revenue. The Fair School Funding Plan was a 6-year phase-in that is still being phased in. This is the 5th, and next year will be the 6th year. They have, by not increasing the base cost components of the foundation formula, we look richer and more wealthier as a district, which moves us further onto the guarantee. This is the first year we went from a formula district to a guarantee district by $7 million, and next year it'll be $14 million onto the guarantee. Just because the state changed the formula and reduced the cost to educate a student, but increased our local community's capacity to pay. So our current state share is at 19%, and next year it'll go to 10%, which is the state minimum share. 10 years ago, we were at 40%. The only changes that have been made is in the state's formula, not in district operations or in our tax base. We currently have 2 expiring levies, and these funds we use on a day-to-day basis. These are not new levies. They fund current staffing and operations. Without renewal or replacement, reductions will be required. Our total revenue is $113 million. Our revenue is projected to remain relatively flat. Again, we are heavily funded with local property taxes, which do not increase unless we have an additional levy. And our operating deficit begins in fiscal '26, which is our current fiscal year. This is because as revenue is stable, expenditures do continue to rise. So we're a service industry. Nearly 80% of our expenses are in people, teachers, and staff that serve our students every day. Annually, we look at our staffing plan and adjust our operations. We do this with our enrollment trend projections, and we right-sized our district in fiscal '21, and we right-size every year based on that plan. So as enrollments change, our staffing changes. And we continue to use our community partnership and then cap our operational growth at 3%. The historical number includes our previous transfers, where we took one-time dollars and shifted them to a different fund for one-time expenses. There was not an increase in operations. Our special education and related services are increasing significantly. These costs are largely outside the district's control and are required by law. They're making up about 24% of our general fund's total expenditures, and we're seeing about a 5% annual increase in costs. Our facilities and infrastructure, our aging buildings require significant investment. While progress has been made, there are additional needs that still remain. 5 of our buildings are over 50 years old. We have $40 million in deferred maintenance. But we have started to build our new Colerain Elementary without needing a bond, and we have our capital maintenance plan established, which is to maintain our newer buildings into the future as they are going to have repairs and ongoing replacement needs. So we strategically used one-time carryover funds to avoid a bond for Colerain Elementary and to address our deferred maintenance. But as we talked about, we have an operating deficit, which is a structural issue. It's not a one-time problem. Without action, these deficits will continue to increase in the future as revenues stay flat and expenditures continue to increase. When we look at our cash reserve policy, we currently meet our cash reserve policy, but are in ongoing deficit spending to reduce this protection over time. So we start eating into our carryover, which is reducing our required days on hand. And as you can see, we meet the threshold during the first 3 years of the forecast, but do not meet it towards the end. This is when, as we've been saying since 2019, we need that additional revenue source, and we have been able to move that from 3 years to 8 years, but at some point it is a need and we're there. So the board has significant decisions ahead. The goal is to maintain quality education while remaining fiscally responsible. We need to replace our current expiring emergency levies, and we need to consider our need for our $5 million, 5-year rolling levy cycle that we've partnered with our community since 2019. And as an administration, we continue to evaluate and adjust our operations annually, as well as balances our services we provide with our community's ability to pay. And as you can see in the chart, our revenues are flat and then decreasing with the levies that are expiring. Our expenditures are increasing even as we've made adjustments and reduced staffing, which is 80% of our costs. So we're spending into our carryover, and by the year 5, we're down to $17 million. That's 2 months of current expenditures. Downturn in the economy, another pandemic, the county withholding our property taxes that are half of our revenue, anything that could happen, we would not have enough money in the bank to make payroll. That's where we're going within this forecast. And what we've been talking about and seeing and projecting since 2019. It's just we're here. It's not new. We've talked about it. We've been projecting it, but now we're here. Our partnership with the community is critical. Together, we ensure strong schools, responsible budgeting, and opportunities for every student. Are there any questions? The notes to the forecast do give a lot more information and a lot more detailed information. So if you had questions after reviewing those. Otherwise, the superintendent and myself recommend that the board approve the February financial forecast and assumptions that were attached to your agenda as listed and presented tonight.
You have a motion and a second.
So moved. Second.
Outside of making cuts, are there other things that you're seeing other districts do to build partnerships with businesses or companies, hospitals to fund the districts?
Most of those donations, partnerships are one-time dollars. They're not continuing, ongoing dollars for day-to-day operations. They're more for specific projects, restricted dollars for a specific thing, not to do the day-to-day operations year after year.
Okay. So we haven't looked into anything outside of levies to?
Outside of something specific, no.
Okay, thank you.
Right, and that passes without opposition.
All right, next we have the school year calendar for the 27-28 school year, so that's on there for information tonight. We always try to stay ahead so that families and staff can plan ahead. So that will be on next month for approval.
Darryl, I got a question. How many in-service days do we have during the year?
For this calendar, typically we have about 3 at the beginning, but because of the 2-hour late starts that we have in there, one of the things we did for next year's calendar, which also reflects on here, is that in order to accommodate the 2-hour late starts that are required by our contract, we have those as PD days. So there's a PD day at the middle of every quarter and the end of every quarter so that our staff have the required time for record keeping and paperwork. And we've added it to the PD days so that we don't have the 2-hour delay schedules, which cause a lot of havoc for our families.
I mean, do you think it's good to have those 2-hour delays? Why not just call school off?
Because we have to have the time with our staff for the contractual obligation for those. So that's needed time for them to do that paperwork. So we're capturing that. And then we also have PD days on any election day. We don't have any kids in school on election days. So when you add that up, we have about 11 PD days per year.
Of all the people that I've talked to, teachers, every single one of them say they think the in-service days are a waste. Is that, would you guys hear that from your union, or? I don't understand. I don't understand why we continue to have those and not just make a contracted day like any other day.
If you looked at some of the data up there, the time for collaboration for our teachers and our staff and our administrators to understand data and respond to it is important. Our building principals do a lot of the lion's share of the work on that to organize those agendas for those days. And they work really hard to try to make meaningful learning experiences for the staff that are collaborative and useful. So we continue to take the feedback. In fact, Nicole, you asked, what do we use Thought Exchange for outside of the attendance survey? Curriculum's been using it this year after in-service days to get feedback about how things are going. So we're always continuing to get feedback and try to improve that, but that time is necessary and needed not only for them to do their paperwork, but for the administrators to have time with their staff to clarify expectations and support development.
And those days are negotiated, is that correct?
The work time for the teachers is negotiated, 2 hours at the end of every quarter and 2 hours, we put it in the middle to try to space it out so they have time to manage the paperwork and the workload between the first and the end of the quarter. It's one of the things that we've done. I think our principals and our curriculum department do a nice job. We've also built in time on these days for intentional planning where teachers are literally working together. So I think we've tried to accommodate the needs and wants of the staff, but this time, from the administrative perspective, is really important and valuable to continue moving the work forward.
I mean, and I'm not doubting what you say, but I don't know anybody has ever come to me and says, man, I love those in-service days. I think we're really enjoying that and we're learning a lot. I've never heard anybody come up to me and say that as a teacher.
What's the alternative? They have to do it on their own time, because I'll tell you, that's what I have to do to my professional development. I have to do that on my own time. They don't give me an
That's what I'm
in-service
saying.
day, so
I don't understand
I'd be
why
thrilled
we
to have
would
an in-service day.
we would continue to do this when the teachers don't like it at all. I mean, I don't get it, and just make it a regular contracted day and move on.
It is a contracted day.
No, I know it's a contracted day that they have to be here. I get that, but I'd rather have them teaching my kid than I would sitting around collaborating. And I mean, you know, you're a teacher, you know how to teach. I don't know. I just haven't had anybody ever come up to me and says, I love these days. I mean, I don't know. It's just kind of, it's my thoughts on it. I don't know what anybody else thinks.
Conversely, Jim.
Or if anybody cares.
Conversely, Jim, I've never had anybody come up to me either way saying how great they are or how bad they are. I find it confusing. Some board members get all these phone calls and emails about gripes from teachers or citizens or whomever, but Nancy and I hardly get anything.
I'll be glad to give people your number.
It's on the website, my email.
I direct
Yeah,
thousands
but,
of calls that I get to you guys.
you know, 3 in-service days, I always found with my profession, in-services were a waste of time. I thought I often knew more than what the presenter was talking about, but, you know, I guess we're at a point where it's in the contract, so we can't change it right now.
The time is, and we've embedded the time into professional development days so that we don't have 2-hour late starts for our families, because that is and has been a nightmare the last 2 years, and so we are moving away from that. There are some required things that we need to do with our staff around safety, security, training, all of that. So these days, although they may not be popular, are needed and necessary, and so we continue to collaborate on the needs of the district and what the staff need. But there's also administrative needs that may not feel good for everyone, but need to be done, and our principals need time in front of their staff to clarify expectations, lead the work, share the data, and collaborate with their staff about how they're going to move achievement forward.
I can't have an opinion because I'm not a teacher, but I will thank the staff for getting rid of the 2-hour delays for both staff and parents. As well as changing the in-service day in January. So thank you to everyone that spoke up about that.
Yeah, and this does give a full week off at November and the 2 weeks at December and a full week at spring break.
Which days was that, Nicole?
The 2-hour delays that the staff never wanted and the in-service day on the 3rd of January.
Next, we have another item for information. This is our annual updates from our Neola Board Policy Updates. We will have a Board Policy Committee meeting before the next board meeting, so if any of the board members or anyone has feedback about the policies listed here, Nancy and Nicole are the representatives on that Board Policy Committee. We'll also work on the open enrollment policy updates as well. So that will all be on a vote for the next meeting, but we'll have a policy committee meeting in between now and then, so the policy committee can do a full, thorough vetting of these before the vote. And lastly, for an update, I just want to take a moment and celebrate Public Schools Week that starts this week. Although it's a week of celebration of public schools, the benefits of what public schools do are evident throughout the community year long. I think we're doing a lot to try to celebrate this week on social media and push out a lot of information about just the power and the promise of public education. Public education across the state of Ohio graduates about 90% of the students. In order to have a viable workforce for the state of Ohio, public schools are an integral part of that formula to make sure that students are college, workforce, military ready. Our students are ready for the workforce, they're ready for the military, they're ready for their next step into a post-secondary option, and we're really proud of the work that we're doing. So on the heels of the forecast, wish that our legislators would value the investment of public education and meet our community halfway with the investment financially to make sure that public education is strong and viable for the near term and long term, because we truly are an engine of economic development for the state, and the state cannot move forward without public education, and we have to come together to find a way to sustainably fund public education long term so we can continue to graduate students who are going into college, career, directly into the workforce, into the military. Our students are graduating with great skills, great assets, and great members of the community, and we just need to make sure that in an environment where we have great choice in this community, it is always going to be a both and, not an either or option. It is not parochial versus public, public versus private. It is both of us working together to make sure that all students have the resources, skills that they need to move forward. We just cannot forget that the power of public education is providing 90% of the graduates of the state of Ohio and needs the resources to continue to graduate the best possible candidates for jobs, for college, and for the military. So with that, I just can't passionately enough say how much public education has done for me individually, for communities at large, and for our students who are relying on us on an everyday basis. With that, I want to also remind people that as we get into March, we are looking into next year. We're finishing strong this year, but kindergarten and preschool enrollment for next school year are going to start in March. So we want our families to be thinking ahead to make sure that they're thinking about that enrollment. Enrolling early gives us an option to meet families, onboard students, for them to know what to expect at the start of the year. We'll continue to have the time frame for open enrollment and then our normal K-12 enrollment as well as we move through the summer. But now is a great time to think about and choose public education, because we will take every student, meet you where you are, know you by name, story, strength, and need, and graduate you into a world of opportunity and possibility. Thank you.
Dara, I have a couple questions. You mentioned social media, and our social media footprint is extremely low. And I just more a comment than a question, but as we get towards the season of Levy, every day there are thousands of kids doing great things and thousands of all of our teachers doing great things in our buildings. And I would like to see us be posting more positive things. Nancy read a bunch of them today. we should be sharing those things out on social media so that we have community members who are in, different Facebook groups or on Instagram, and they share the district's posts. We've only had 1 or 2 since November that are actually from our page. So I would like to see us step that up, especially as we get towards just the levy season. And then also, yeah, please.
Who's in charge of doing that?
Our new PR person, so I'll check with him on the frequency of posts and review that, and
Yeah, I mean, we should have something at least once a week.
Exactly, yeah.
Or
We
a couple
do
of
not
days a
ever
week.
have
Hey,
anything on
this
there.
is what your kid did, they're doing great. This is what your kid did. Look what we're doing, I mean, all that can do is,
Yep. Every week there could be a roundup. I proposed this a couple years ago. But, when I was doing that, I would take those notes and share them out because not everybody can watch the meetings or does watch the meetings. There is opportunity to reach out to every principal every week. It needs to be a lot better than it is. And also a few weeks ago, I called about playgrounds at Pleasant Run and Taylor. Do you have an update on where that is?
I don't at this point, but I'll take the question, get the information, and get back to the board.
Well, my question was a couple weeks ago.
And I asked Chris to look into that, but
Okay.
because he was point for that, but since this is the first time we're hearing the question, we probably don't have an adequate answer for tonight, so we'll
This
get,
isn't the first time I've asked it.
but we'll get an answer and get back to you.
Okay. So my question was that Pleasant Run and Taylor were both doing some fundraising for their new playgrounds for special needs. So I was calling you a couple weeks ago for an update on that and see where those are. So, yeah, if you can get back to the board on that. And then also snow days, I saw West Claremont post something recently with clarification on where they were with hours. And then Oak Hills recently posted something outlining kind of where they were with hours, as well as they did like a remote day versus a snow day. So I haven't seen anything. I was wondering, are we close on hours? And have we ever considered having a plan B in the case that we get as much snow as we did this year?
So this is a new question that hasn't been asked yet, so I can get back to the board on that.
You don't know how many hours we're at?
Yeah, I can look that up, but typically we would get a question in advance so I could give you an adequate response. So I can take the question, get the information, and get back to you. But yes, we are close in a couple of places on our hours, but hopefully we're turning the corner with snow days and we won't need to use any additional ones. We do have the ability to use some online learning days because we have our blended learning declaration with the state. But yeah, I can get you a more full answer given time to pull all that information together.
Yeah, I was just curious if you knew where we were at or had any thoughts on if there was talk of doing remote in the future if we got to that point.
For most of our district, we are fine on hours. We have a couple of grades that are going to be close, and if we have full snow days, we would probably need to look at something, but it would be a blended option. But I don't want to misquote numbers, so I would look into that and get back to you.
Okay, thank you.
if we're close in numbers, say there's a day between here and the end of the school year, can you add a day that we're off for some reason or whatever, can you say, hey, we're going to school that day because we have to get these hours in?
So you can take back some of the days that, like a spring break day or something like that. The staff have to work that day as well. So it would be something that we would work with the union on to kind of look at that. Otherwise, we'd be adding it on to the end of the year in June.
Okay.
Either way, that's probably going to kill our attendance.
Yeah.
And the other option is if there's another, if we get that close, then the next time there's a snow day, then the kids in those grade levels don't get a snow day and the staff in those grade levels don't get a calamity day, and they're working remotely because the state requires that you're doing synchronous learning. So it can't be that you just give the kids a bunch of work and they do it online. The teachers have to be online Zooming with the kids like a full day of schedule. And they just wouldn't get the calamity day.
All right, we'll move on to board comments. Sierra, are you up to speaking or you need a break?
I think I'm up to speaking. I just want to say
keep up the good work to the staff and the students.
Nicole?
Congratulate Susan, and thank you for all her hard work for our district. And then also thank everyone that helped clear parking lots and walkways up to the schools, and especially our bus drivers. I stopped by there a few weeks ago, and just the amount of turns and parking lots and streets that weren't prepared for them, and the extra work and that driving that they had to go through. So thank you to them. And then also thank you, Carrie, for speaking, and for our students that came and spoke at the beginning of the meeting. Thank you.
Jim?
Yeah, I want to thank you, everybody, for your information on the absenteeism, because I think that's a big problem. Where's Jake? You did a good job with that. I appreciate that. And then, Daryl, I wanted to talk about the field house at Colerain, about how some school districts have, they call it naming rights or they call it advertising. What is the difference, or is there any difference? Because if you do naming rights for a particular building or whatever, you can get somebody to donate a lot more money than just me advertising my company. Hey, I spent $1,000, you know, come buy my chili that I'm selling at my, you know, at my store. You know, why, is there anything, can we call it? I know the board doesn't vote on that. It's up to the, is it the AD and the?
So we had this conversation before when Nicole
yeah, I
brought
just
the
want to
policy
clarify
around
this.
commemoration of buildings, which has nothing to do with money, but about commemoration. But as a district, naming rights would require us to do a lot of business use calculations with our bond attorney. It's one-time money. What we've decided as a district through our athletic council is that we will allow our boosters to continue to fundraise using advertising. So they're able to sell advertising to anyone. They're able to place it wherever they want on the field house or on the track, and that becomes revenue for advertising that goes directly to the boosters. If it is a naming rights, then the money comes to the district, and we've worked with the boosters to try to give them the leeway to organize and run the fundraising so that the money goes to them so that they can do projects like the field house and have the money to do that.
So just to correct you, the policy actually does say monetary as well, not just commemorative. But so putting a name on a building can just be advertising.
Yes.
But the name can still be the blank family field house.
And the boosters have the right to do that advertising, to do the placement. Now, there are some requirements that our athletic directors worked with UC. We have an advertising agreement with UC, so there are certain requirements that go with that. But we're getting a significant contribution for those advertising dollars from the UC contract. So the boosters have the ability to, outside of those existing contracts, to do advertising. We've met with the boosters to describe this and explain it, that they have the ability to kind of place the advertising on the building, and then it's renewable income because they typically advertise for a period of time, and then either the name comes down or you pay more money.
So does the boosters come up, like, say I want to put my company's name up there, the XYZ company, for 5 years, and I want to give $200,000. Do I sign a contract with the boosters or with the school district to say I want to make payments each quarter?
It's through the boosters, and it's advertising, and I would hope they would get more for that amount of money, for that amount of time.
Well, I'm just using that as an example.
But yeah.
So I would sign a contract with the boosters.
It would go to the boosters. And the money goes to the boosters, not to the district, so they can do projects like the field house that they're doing now.
Okay.
Otherwise, the naming rights, we own the buildings, the naming rights would come to us, and we would get the money, not the boosters.
Gotcha.
And so the, like, Rumpke being in the turf and on the building at Northwest is just advertising?
That's advertising.
Correct? Okay.
Chris?
I still am confused about the naming rights thing. I know there's the Keating Auditorium over at St. X, and it's a private school. And when I worked at Atrium Hospital, they paid $1 million to Mason for naming rights for the football field. But I guess dollars are dollars, and as long as the boosters get the money, it doesn't really matter. Did want to, I know Susan's left, thank her for her, oh, no, she is. For some reason, I thought you were over there. Sorry, Susan. Susan, thank you for your hard work for the school district. I've never met this woman when she's not smiling. And so good luck to you in your future endeavors. And then finally, thank Colerain Middle School for letting us use their facilities tonight.
All right. And once again, I'd like to congratulate all our students on their wonderful accomplishments that we had in the student liaison report, as well as the presentation that we have. We always have such poised and well-spoken students. I really like all the opportunities that they get to experience, and it's great that we can promote those at the board meetings and hopefully on social media as well. I'd also like to thank people from the union for coming to speak. I appreciate that. I appreciate you taking your time to come out and give your opinion. And I also would like to say, Susan, I will dearly miss you. You always have a great smile on your face. You are always a joyful person, always easy to talk to, always respond to questions, and you have a quiet strength about you, which I think is very much needed in a human resource person. And I hope you do for the best in your next role.
Yeah, good luck. Still not happy back there.
Yeah.
Still not happy back there.
All right, next we have a motion to move into executive session to discuss the superintendent's evaluation. Superintendent recommends the board approve the motion to move into executive session as listed.
I get a motion in a second.
Second.
And that passes without opposition, and we will not have any business when we come back from executive session. Thanks for